And welcome to Scratch for Beginners Lesson 8. And what can I say? It has been a fantastic journey the entire way through the course. That's 8 lessons we've done together, 8 projects that we've made, and oh my god, have I been overwhelmed with all of the support that you guys have sent, or all of the projects that you guys have sent in. Let's have a look at some of the projects that we've done over the space of the course. Now, I haven't had a chance to check out all of them just yet, so don't worry about it if there's no comments or there's no likes or favorites on your project as of yet. It just means I have to get around to them all first of all. For instance, we've had a lot of very cool projects in the last couple of days. We've been starting to see some platformer projects coming in. For instance, we have our Mario 3 100% pen here. Let's have a look. That's really good artwork as well. So if it was completely done in pen, I absolutely hats off to you, Cornflake04. Let's have a look. Then we have a few more projects as well. Some of my favorite projects are just the nice and simple ones, like we have Splat the Talking Squid as well. Let's have a look. Okay, so it seems like Campo 456 has learned loads from the course as well. And as well as that, guys, we've seen loads of unique projects coming in as well as that. So we have, for instance, Mazio Rabbit's piano project, where we can play the piano. We have a maths quiz with Squirrely from WD Darcy. And of course, Superhero Battle as well, which is just very enjoyable, as it is a nice battle between Scratch the Cat and Red the Angry Bird. But what we have first of all is just enough time to help Scratch with his homework as well, and we end up doing a maths quiz on that one. So it's brilliant, guys. Well done to everybody. We've seen some really fantastic projects here, some very creative guys out there, and of course all very talented Scratchers as well. So let's have a look at today's lesson, guys. What is the final thing we are going to be showing you in today's lesson? Well, today's challenge is going to be all about creating collectibles. We'll be looking to add in some danger to our platformer as well by adding some lava pits. And of course, what happens when we beat the game as well. How do we let the player know that they've won? And then we have just enough time to talk about the final assignment in today's lesson as well. So we have loads to cover in today's lesson, a few more tips and tricks to add into our games as well. Let's begin with adding our coins and gems into it. So the first thing you need to do is add the sprites in, guys. Just add in your coins or your gems, whatever you'd like Mario to be able to collect. So in my game, I have the gems, I have the emeralds, and I have coins as well. What you're going to need to do first is create your variable as well. And what variables are we going to need? Well, I have them all created here. They are button number, player 1 score, and player 2 score. So you don't have to call them player 1, you can call them Mario, you can call them Luigi, you can call them P1, you can call them P2. It's just what I decided to call the score, just so I had a good idea in my head what scores were being used where. Now the reason for the button number variable, well, that'll become obvious in just a few moments. Let's start by creating those variables and taking a look at the starter project for our lesson 8. So here you can see, guys, I've not done much more to the project. I've added in my 3 sprites. I've made another sprite for the platform, which means we can jump up to the next level up top. And we've also made a sprite for the lava pit. And interestingly enough, if you look, it's the same exact one as our platforms, except I've changed the color to red. Then I made a new sprite for the flag, and that's the green flag at the end of the level. When it shows up, it means you have collected enough coins to beat the game. To begin though, we're going to start with the coin sprite that we started with, and we're going to try creating our variables first of all. So we go into our data tab, we'll make our variable, and we're going to use, for all sprites, we're going to create player 1 score. And we can hit OK on that. And there we have our player 1 score variable is made. Hopefully you guys can all see that. And then we can start creating our next variable as well. So we have player 2 score for all sprites as well. And then we just need one more variable, and we can use this variable is going to be for this sprite only. So we're going to call it button number. And we'll see why we use that in just a moment. So we can just create it and leave it there to one side for the moment. So the next thing we need to do, guys, is let's break down this big chunk of code we have here on the side of the screen. Let's see, what does it do? So I'll grab my pen here now and we'll have a look through it. So here we have when our green flag is clicked, we're going to start saying, okay, first thing we need to do is set player 1 score to 0, and the same for player 2 as well. So why do we do that, guys? Well, that's just to make sure that nobody has a score of 20 or 40 when they start the game, that they all start on the same page, both start at 0. So that's why it's very important to set the player score at the very start. So the very first thing you need to do when you are coding your coin or your gem or whichever one it is you want to do, you just set the score then to 0 after making your score variables down here. Set them to 0 and then set the button number as well to 0 as well. So what are we doing with this button number next? That's the big one here. Well, what we can do is we can use these blocks here. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to see these blocks before. These are the clone blocks as well. So let's have a look at them in Scratch. Where do we get the clone blocks? As you've seen, they were yellow blocks, so we'll find them in the control tab as well. And there we are. Here we have when I start as a clone, we have create a clone of myself, and we have delete this clone as well. So when I start as a clone, it has a little bit of a rounded top here, which means it's exactly like the events tags, which we have here when our green flag is clicked. And so what we can do is we can say when we create a clone of ourselves, then we can add new code over here, just like we did with our functions when we were making our own blocks. We can say when we start as a clone or a copy of the coin, we can do our own functions here. And we'll have a look at that in just a few moments. We won't need to delete this clone for the moment. First of all, we're going to focus on grabbing our button number and setting our player variables as well. So we have set our button number to 0. We can drag out another copy and we can even duplicate that as well if we'd like. Then we need to change player 1 score and player 2 score, and we need to make sure that they are all being set to 0 when we start the game. So that's the first thing we need to do. Next thing we need to do, guys, is have a look at that code again to see what it was we were doing exactly. Well, we had a change button number by 1 block in. So if we are setting button number to 0 and we change it by 1, it's going to equal to 1 up here. Then we create a clone. We change button number by 1 again. So that means we're going to have our button number is then equal to 2. And of course, then we have another one to change it to 3 again. And then we set button number back to 0 as we finish up. Then we wait for 1 second. So why do we wait for 1 second? Well, what we are going to do, guys, is we're going to create, and we have it in a repeat 8 block here. We're going to create 3 positions on the screen for our coins to be cloned. So we have, let's say we'll have our coin up at the top here. We'll have another coin down here and one more coin here. But we don't want them to all jump in and make clones right beside each other so that it looks a bit like this when we go to collect coins. We want them to be spaced out just by enough time that we can say, even just by 1 second, we just want to make our clones look a bit like this. And once they've all been made, then we can have a bit of fun with it as well, guys. So what we're doing here is we are changing the button number to make sure that they go, when the button number is equal to 1, they'll start down here. When it's equal to 2, they'll start up here. And when they're equal to 3, they'll start up at the top. So that's why we change the button number as we create the clones. And we create 3 separate clones for 3 different places on the stage. Then we wait for 1 second and we go back. We do it all again. And we create 8 of these. So let's have a look at adding this code into our code first of all, guys. Don't worry if you're not completely sure what it is we're doing. We're just going to add in the code and see what happens when it all works together. So I'm going to drag in my change button number by 1. And I can have my creative clone of myself. What we can do there, guys, is duplicate it. and duplicate it again. And of course, add our repeat block in there as well. So the very last thing to do, let's see, we have our 3 clones. We're changing the button number by 1. We want to set our button number back to 0. Let's just make sure it's available for everybody to see. Set our button number back to 0 and then wait for 1 second as well. So we'll drag our wait for 1 second block in there as well. And we can leave it in the corner just like that. So that's the first thing we need to do, guys, and that's well done if you're following along up until this point. Now we're going to have a look at cloning the coins as well. So what happens when we said we were going to use that when I start as a clone block? What should we do? Well, we're going to use a forever loop. We're going to say if we're touching the sprite Mario, then we can play the sound pop. Why are we going to play the sound pop? Because it'll be the sound of Mario collecting the coins, and we don't have a coin sound that goes ka-ching. Unless you guys would like to record one as well. So I'm just going to use the play sound pop in this lesson. But you guys can create your own sounds as well and make that game just a little bit more unique and a little bit more fun to show off as well. So we have our change player score by 1, which means every time we collect one of the coins, if the coin is touching Mario, we can change the player score by 1. And it'll increase, and then we can hide the clone as well. So that hide would be very important as well, because we don't want it to be touching Mario, and then for every single time that the loop goes through and it's still touching Mario, then we are going to have some problems. However, if we hide the coin clone as it's touching Mario, then we'll only get to change the score once, which is why we update it by 1. And if you're having any bugs in your code, if there's something not working, you'll always be able to tell by using the variable. If it's moving too fast, if you're getting way too many coins, then you need to remember to add your hide block in there as well. So let's have a look at adding in the coins now, or the clone code. So like we said, we have when I start as a clone up here. We'll take our forever block and our if block as well. Then we're going to use our Mario sprite. So we're going to see if we're touching Mario, then we are going to play the sound pop. So make sure that you select pop on your play sound. Change the player score. Let me see, whereas by change player score here, even though it says change button number, we can use our drop down arrow to change it to change player 1 and say by 1 as well. Now you don't have to change by 1, guys. You can say each coin that we collect is actually 10 coins, or you can say that it's 100 coins, or you can do whatever number you'd like. But for this, I'm going to change it just by 1, just to show you guys how this all works. And of course, then we use our hide block there as well. Now what happens if we're touching Luigi? We need to do something else. So what we'll do is we can right click on this code, duplicate that, drag it down here, and then we can say instead of touching Mario, we can touch Luigi. We'll still play another sound pop, and we'll use our player 2 score instead. So we'll be able to change player 2 score by 1 when we're touching Luigi, and we'll still hide the coin as well. What else do we need to do, guys? Well, we have that strange variable which we haven't really seen in effect yet, that button number. So let's have a look at creating the code for our button number there. So like as you can see here, guys, we are using the when I start as a clone block again to say when we start as a clone, we're going to forever check if we're touching Mario or Luigi. Or we can say as well, when we start as a clone, we're also going to check to see if the button number is equal to 1. Then we are going to go to this position. We're going to set X to 250. We'll change by 100, and we'll change by X by -5, and we'll repeat that 100 times. Does this code look familiar? It should, because it is the same code we're using in the project already. This is the code that we've been using for our bushes, our trees, and our clouds as well, and even some of our platforms as well. So guys, it's pretty simple stuff. We're going to get the coins to move across, just like we did with the trees, like we did with the bushes. We're going to make them come towards Mario, and what you'll have to do in this platformer is move up or down to try to catch the coins before they're all gone. Funny though, the funny thing about that is that's very simple to do. It's very easy to do. So why are we making clones? Well, we're going to make it loads and loads of coins, so that makes it even harder to catch all of the coins And then eventually you're just like, where do I go? Ah, I have to catch all of them. So that's the way we're going to have the coins moving along the screen. So as you can see, guys, in my project, let's just take a second to notice this. You can't see my coin in the project whatsoever. If I double click on the show block, we can see there's my coin here. I've left it down on the bottom of the screen just to show you guys that we can start off here. Wherever you put your coin to start off with is where the clones will start being made. So we'll say, let's put the coin here at the bottom. That way we can just walk into them as we are going along at the beginning of the project. Then as button equals to number 2, they'll start appearing up here. And as the button equals to number 3, they'll start appearing up there. So, what do we need to do first then? We need to start creating that code for when I start as a clone. So we'll grab into our control block again. And what will I do now? I'll just move my when I start as a clone blocks over here so we can make room for the new code. So we say when I start as a clone, we need to check to see if the button number is equal to something. So if we're using to check if it's equal to something, that means we need to use an operator. And if it's an operator we're looking for, we can say that a variable button number, we can pop it in there to say if the button number is equal to 1, then we want to use code in here. And we can say, duplicate that and say if the button number is equal to 2, we can do something different. And the same again for 3 as well. So that's all of the clone code there that we'll need. We can fill that in as we'd like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bush code. Yeah, I'll take the bush one. And we can pop it into the coin code there. So lots of code I don't need in this one. I'm just going to get rid of these bits of code. I won't be needing to change the costume, but I will need to show my show block instead. So why am I going to use the show block in this example, guys? Let's just see. We'll say set x to 250, which means x will go over here off the stage, and then we will repeat changing x by -5 10 times. So we'll see that x moves all the way across the screen and it moves down. So we need to change repeat to 100. And we get rid of that operator. So then we can do the coin will move -500 all the way around. And we need to use the show as well, because what happens if we are touching Mario or Luigi? We tell the clone to hide. So if it's touching Luigi, then it hides. It goes back to the start, and then we need to make sure that it's showing again so that the new coin is there and we can collect it again. So that's why the show block is there, guys, and that's a very important block. Oh, as well as that, we can't just have it doing this one time. We need to do it forever. So I shouldn't have deleted that forever block at all. Let me add it back in there. We have our if the button number is equal to 1, forever, set x to 250, show, and repeat all the way across the stage. Brilliant, guys. So that's the first part of the code done. What we need to do next, guys, is just change it around so that we can make them wait. So as you can see there in that first example, we have our wait for 5 seconds. So what we can tell them to do is, if you want the coins to show up on the ground level first, you can do them as they are in the project now. If you want them to show up after that, you can say wait for 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Or you can say wait for no seconds and just tell them where to start going to. So we can use a go to X for the other two positions, tell them where we want those coins to start and where they should be coming into the page from. So as you can see, guys, we're setting X to 250 at all times. We can set X to 250, we set X to 250, and we set X to 250. Then we can change the Y position. So if we're using Y equals -140, that would be somewhere on the ground. Then we can use Y is equal to 50, which is somewhere up in the air. And then the set X here is wherever the original coin sprite is coming in from. So we have the coin sprite on the ground. So that's the first thing we could do. What we'll do next is we'll copy this code. We'll put it into button number equals 2. We'll go for our wait block as well. And we'll say wait for 5 seconds before doing any of this code. We'll change our X block as well. So what will we do? We'll get rid of set X to 250 and we'll use a go to block instead. We'll say go to X 250. And where do we want the Y position to go now? So at the moment the coin is at minus 138. We'll say we wanted to go up to the second platform here, so we'll say somewhere around minus 40 maybe would be a better one, maybe minus 50. We'll try minus 40, see how that works. So minus 40 in this example here. And we can add that back into our forever block. We say wait for 5 seconds before showing up these coins, before making these coins move forever and ever and ever. And we can do the exact same again for number 3. We can duplicate that code. We can say wait for 10 seconds this time and make sure that we can jump all the way to the top and say where will we put these coins? But we'll put these coins right up there at the top of the game at Y position equal to 100. Now, so let's see how that runs, guys. Well, we have a little quick test of the game and see how that works for us. We won't need to see our variables on the screen here, so we can get rid of button number. And we'll maybe try to see player score 1 and player score 2. And now, it is just myself playing the game here, so forgive me if Mario or Luigi don't run properly at the same time. Okay, so guys, we can see that the coins are working. They are being collected. We can see player 1 score is 107 because that was Mario who I was using the most. And we have our player 2 score, which is 77. So that works as well. Brilliant. That means so far everything has worked as we've wanted it to. So what did we do there? Guys, we created our variables. We have player 1 score, player 2 score, and we used a button number to create a sort of a switch to say, when we start as a clone, if the button number equal to 1, we'll tell the coin to start at the bottom. If the button number is equal to 2, we can start in the middle of the page. And if the button number is equal to 3, we can start at the top of the page. And of course, don't forget that we also created the code to say what happens when we start as a clone if we are touching Mario or Luigi. We want to make sure that we're changing the player 1 score for Mario and the player 2 score for Luigi as well. So the next thing, guys, that we need to do is start creating a little bit of difficulty. We'll add the lava pit next. And what do we need to do for that? Well, like I said at the start of the lesson, we can duplicate the platform and then just change the color. So we'll take that platform, duplicate it, and change the color of it as well, just to give you guys a good indication of what it is we do. So where we can see our lava pit there as an example, we can delete that. And we can create sprite number 3 by just right-clicking, duplicate, and there we have sprite 5. So what do we need to do with sprite 5, guys? We need to, first of all, change the costume, change the color of it, and we can change that in vector mode, which is where I'm in at the moment. I have my paint bucket here, and I can change it to a nice red color. So there'll also be a little brown outline there. Just make sure to change that to red as well, because it'll be very important as we go through the lesson. Then don't forget to name your sprite Lava Pit. And that'll let you have your lava pit in there. So what we need to do, guys, is make sure that it is in line with the ground on the bottom here. So what we can do is we'll throw it over to the edge here. So Mario is literally just about to walk into the lava pit now. What we need to do is we need to add the code to say, well, we need that lava pit to move. So just like we did with our bush, now you can copy that code in, drop it into the lava pit. Oh, it looks like I have changed the lava pit into my platform, and the platform I was meant to use for my lava pit, oh, it's still there. Let me see. Is my other code here? Yeah. Okay, so what happened there? Ah, yes, so we duplicated the sprite, and it already had the code in there. So what happened is that the lava pit copied in the code as well. So we don't need this code at the moment. We'll chuck it out. We don't need to change the costume either, so we can chuck that out as well. Now let's have a look at what that code reads. So we're saying set x to 250. That's okay. We'll start there at 250. We'll pick a random number to come by, and we'll change x till we get all the way to the bottom. So then it'll be a random time before the lava pit comes back up again. The next thing we need to do, guys, is add code to the players. And what do we need the players to do? Well, we need to say that when the players touch the lava pit, we need to change the score. We need to reset the character as well. And we need to add maybe a little blinking animation as well, just to say the player was hurt, or you can add a sound effect of somebody going, ah, or oh. And that will work as well. So let's have a look at what that code looks like. And here we can see an example. We can say when the green flag is clicked, we'll check forever. So that's using a forever block and an if block to say if we are touching the lava pit, then we can change the player's score by -10. So that means that you're losing 10 of your coins that you just spent so long collecting. Or maybe you could say -100 coins if you wanted to make the game really tough. And you can say go to x -170 and y 40. So what will that do? That means Mario will be at the top of the page and he'll fall back down into the world as he starts blinking as well. So let's have a look at adding that code in, guys. I hope you guys are all following along with us. Oh, and just to get a wee quick update on Mario as well, I forgot to mention this at the start of the lesson. So what I did there, guys, was I changed the code to say when the up arrow key is pressed. Remember we had our repeat 10, change y by 7, and then if we were not touching the color, we change y by -7. Well, it turns out we can do it a little bit differently. We can use our when our green flag is clicked, we can say if we are not touching the up arrow key, or if the up arrow key is not being pressed, and we're not touching the ground color either, then we can say that we are definitely up in the sky somewhere. So that's where we are. If we're not pressing the up button and we are not touching the ground, we want Mario to start falling down again. And that means that when we press the up button, we just need to worry about moving upwards. So when we're up in the sky after pressing up, we're going to let go because that's how far we want it to move up. And then we'll fall back down because we're not touching the ground. So have a look at that code, guys. It's when the green flag is clicked, or forever, if, and then we change y by -7. Then you can fill in the operator. The first operator I'm using here is my operator and I'm putting in another operator that says not, and that's not when the up arrow key is pressed. And that's also another not, and when we're not touching the color brown, which is the color of the ground, of course. So with that, just that little disclaimer out of the way, guys, we can start focusing on how to create the code for the lava pit. Where does this code go again? That's right, it goes into both Mario and Luigi. So this is where we're going to be adding the code into. First of all, we need to do is grab when our green flag is clicked, because this will be happening from the very start of the game. We can check forever. So we use our forever if, and we can check if we're touching, and we'll say if we're touching the lava pit, then we can say start changing the player score. Now this is why we made the player score for all sprites, not just for the coin sprite, but for all sprites, because we knew that Mario and Luigi would need to change their variables as well. So there we have change player 1 score by 1. We're not going to change it by 1 though, we're going to change it by -10. And there we can use our go to x as well. So we have our, say, -170, and we'll go to y 40. Now what we can do, guys, is add in our animation. So just like we did with our changing our costumes to make it look like we're running, we can add another animation in to say, let's make it look like we are blinking. So we can repeat this 3 times. What we're going to do, we're going to use our wait block, and we're going to use our show and hide block as well. So what we're going to do first of all, guys, well, we'll take our hide block in. We'll say, first of all, hide for 0.02 seconds, and then show again. So all of that inside of the repeat block. Then we can add another repeat or another wait block in as well, and say wait for 0.2 seconds, and then repeat. So we go back up, so we wait for 0.2 seconds, then we hide him again, then we wait, then we show him again, and then we repeat that one more time because we were repeating it 3 times. So how does that look? Well, maybe we should test the project and find out. So if we're playing as Mario, let's have a look. Okay, so it looks like it's working pretty well there. And we can see that poor Luigi has fallen all the way down to the bottom of the screen. Now, why is that? That's because he is not touching the ground when he runs into the lava pit. So the gravity on Luigi means that he's just going to keep falling down all the way to the bottom. And that's why we add our code to put him back up into the sky so that he can fall back down, and when he's touching the ground again, he will stop. So how do we add this code to Luigi? Well, we can simply drag and drop our code that we put into Mario. Have a look at Luigi. Oh, it's a little bit busy looking in here. Let's get rid of this one. And here's one I made earlier. We have when our green flag is clicked, if we are touching the lava pit, we can say go to X 170. Ooh. Change the player score to, or player 2 score by -10, and there we have our animation for blinking as well. So why didn't it work when he touched the lava pit? Well, let's have a look at what I called lava pit. So if we look at it, it's lava with no space and a capital P. But here we say if we're touching lava with a space and a capital P, then we'll run this code. But we don't have a sprite called lava with a space and a capital P. We have one without the space. So if I change it to that, and we run it again, and we can see both Mario and Luigi are following the rules, the instructions and the commands that we have set out for our lava pit. So the last thing we need to do is make it a random point when the lava pit starts to spawn. How do we do that? I can hear you guys all screaming. Well, we just add another wait block, and we can say how long do you want to wait before the lava pits start to show up. We'd say 1 to 7 seconds. So either you're going to get, when you press the green flag, you're going to get a really hard game that has lava pits from the very start of the game, or you get a nice and simple game, and after 7 seconds, then it starts to get a little bit harder again. So if we run the code now, we can see okay, so we can see both Mario and Luigi are working out pretty well there. What we need to do, maybe just to make the effect a little bit nicer, is say hide when we click the green flag, and then show once we have waited the amount of seconds before the lava pit is to show up on the screen. So that's everything we need to do there. Let's have a look at some of the key points of what we've just learned, because we covered a lot so far. We've already run well over time. So let's have a look at the key points there. We've looked at cloning sprites in today's lesson. That was using our when I start as a clone block and my create a clone of myself block. We looked at adding the lava pits as well. So that was using what happened when we touch the lava pits, what scores do we do, where should we make the player teleport back to, and of course adding in the animation as well for blinking. Don't forget, guys, just because I showed it to you this way, you can do it any way you'd like. And I'm sure some of you have already seen that you can do whatever you'd like because you have been editing your own code. You've been changing things around to make it a little bit more fun, to put your own unique stamp on it, and to say, I made this game myself, which is fantastic. And keep working on it, guys, because even though this is our last lesson, it is not the last time you have to use Scratch. You will have access to Scratch for the rest of your life if you'd like. So don't forget to keep on working on your stuff and keep making new things as well. So let's have a look at doing the game over just before we let you all go. We have a hide and show block. So that's what we need to do first of all. We need to say, just like we did with the lava pit, we're not ready when the green flag is clicked, but we can say wait for about 15 or 30 seconds, and then we can say show, and then you can add in your game over message as well. So what do we need to do in that? Well, let's look at the code for our green flag. And of course, there is no code for our green flag. So we'll grab when our green flag is clicked, we'll say wait for 15 seconds in this case. And then we'll say show and hide as well. So hide at the beginning, and then after we've waited for the 15 seconds, we can show the flag. So in this example, guys, I've just done a nice little green flag here at the bottom. We're just going to tell that flag to stay there, and then after 15 seconds, you can show up, and then it'll be up to whoever touches the flag will end the game. And then you can add in your game over message. So what I did was I created another forever if block to say if we are touching Mario or if we are touching Luigi, we can say game over for 2 seconds. So when we say game over, then we know the game is over. That's it. Somebody has won. We need to find out who won. So which player has won the game? In that case, guys, we can add in another if-else block. We can add in a stop all block at the end to say that's it, the game is over. But inside the if-else block, we can say if this player 1 score is less than the player 2 score, then we can say the player 2, or we can say Luigi wins. Then you can show Luigi's score and hide Mario's score. That's player 2 score and player 1 score. And then if that's not true, if it's player 1 score is greater than the player 2 score, then we can say in the else block, we can say player 1 wins or Mario wins, and then we can show player 1 score and hide player 2 score as well. So like I said, guys, we are just running a little bit over time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that code in as I've done it already. Here it is now. So we have our if block. If we are touching Mario or if we are touching Luigi, we can say game over. Remember, that's the code we've seen in the slide. And then we said if we add in our if-else block, which is the one over here, we'll add in our operator to say if the player 1 score is less than the player 2 score, we can say, what is it we're going to say now? So if the player 1 score is less than the player 2 score, we can say Luigi wins. Then we can show player 2 score and hide player 1 score. Otherwise, we know that Mario has won the game, so we can say Mario wins and show and hide the player scores there. Don't forget then at the very end, all we need to do is add in our stop all block, and that will mean that the game is now over. Once we add that into our forever if loop, we can constantly be checking, is the game over? And then once it has happened, the game can end. So now we can have a look at the finished game. And what do we see there? That the player 1 score is equal to 41. So that's everything we set out to do, guys. We created a platformer, we learned how to jump, and of course we made it all into one big fun and playable game as well.